Good morning. With us today is Rob Dial, host of the Super Successful Mindset Mentor podcast, speaker, coach, content creator. He's with us today to talk about, obviously, mindset, talk about some
Author,
goals,
author, author as well. Very
author,
important to point
author.
out.
Yeah. Talk about his passion for watches and maybe show off a couple of the pieces that he has. Along with us is Adrian, head buyer, Luxury Bazaar. Obviously, he's the contact for Rob, and Rob has dealt with him exclusively. So we wanted to make sure that this is a conversation regarding all your transactions, every single dollar, every detail. I'm just kidding. We could skip the dollar amounts, unless you want to get into it.
Well,
Right,
that's gonna happen after. This is actually our first formal meeting. We've just been kind of going back and forth.
The way that we met was I went to go follow Roman on Instagram, and when you follow somebody, it pops up on the bottom and tells you people that are like them. And then I saw Adrian's, and I was like, oh shit, he's already following me. I was like, I've been following these guys for a few years, and I sent him a message, and he was like, oh my god, dude, I've been following you for a while. We should hop on a call. And it was like 2 hours later, we were talking on the phone.
Yeah.
So that's how we got connected.
That's awesome. The funnel seems to be working.
Yeah. But now I got the watch plug, which is all I needed, So I got my plug for when I need the good stuff.
Well, you got the right one. So, Rob, before we get into your passion for watches, let's introduce our audience to who you are, what you do, how you got started.
Yeah, man. So I kind of give you a real quick story of how I got into this and why I'm obsessed with mindset. Like I went to school, I wanted to be a psychologist, and then I realized that I had to go to school longer to be a psychologist. And I also realized that I hated school. So those two things were going to line up really well. I got into a sales company at the exact same time, Cutco. They recruit about 40,000 people a year. Maybe 0.1% of them stick. I was one of the ones that stuck. And the thing I liked most about it was the training and trying to get better and reading books and improving yourself. I hired my first coach when I was 19 years old. I paid him $500 a month, which was more than I paid in rent, to coach me on mindset, life, but then also sales, to get better at sales. By the time I left that company, I had run the #1 office in the entire United States as a sales manager, and then opened up my own office and ran the #1 new district office in Fort Lauderdale. And by the time I left, I had trained over 2,000 sales reps in 4 years by the time I was almost 24, and left that company, went into doing sales and sales training and stuff. The thing I missed the most about it was actually just teaching people the mindset stuff that I had taught all my sales reps. So 2015, I started a podcast. This is before like podcasts were a big thing. And I was like, I literally just felt obligated, like I needed to teach this stuff to people, because there was a lot of stuff that I had dealt with. My father passing away because he was an alcoholic. So he passed away when I was 15. I kind of realized that I became my own therapist in a lot of ways, and it helped me out. And I just wanted to teach people what helped me. Started in 2015. Very few people even knew what a podcast was back then. But I was just like, I'm just going to keep creating more and more and more. And I think that the thing that people like about it is I don't try to act like I'm a perfect person. I tell people how screwed up I am in everything I do. And also, I like to call it no bullshit mindset stuff. I don't want to, people are like, oh, are you a motivational speaker? I'm like, I don't want to motivate you. If it does, that's great. What I want you to do is teach you how to get out of your own way, so you can actually just create the life that you want. And so, started off, and it was literally just me by myself inside of my room in a house. And now we're at, approaching 250 million downloads almost 8 years later.
Yeah, you have the #1 rated podcast in the motivational category, which is an amazing achievement. I mean, you're going against people like
Thank you.
You're going against people like Tim Ferriss and what's the other one? The really big one.
Oh, it's Tony Robbins.
Anthony Robbins. Yeah, Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. So to be able to beat them is unreal. So definitely congratulations on that.
Well, what's crazy about it is I almost didn't start the podcast for 8 months because I was like, who the hell would listen to me when they could listen to Tony Robbins?
Right,
like that was a real thing. I had the idea in January 2015, and I started in August of 2015 because I was like, nobody's going to listen to me. Like I had the imposter syndrome fully, and I'm like, wow, I guess people like it. And I've had Tony Robbins on my podcast as well, which is pretty wild. The whole circle
that's crazy. That's actually how I got connected with you, was through Tony. Well, not directly through Tony Robbins, but because of Tony Robbins. Just like Roman Sharp went to me, and I don't want to compare you and Tony Robbins with me and Roman Sharp, but the same exact thing, because Tony Robbins was definitely a big part of what made me whatever level of success I have, because I also came from a past of trouble, and guys like yourself and Tony Robbins certainly helped me out. So it's a funny connection there.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Yeah, I don't like to make it frou-frou-y. I just want to tell people what's real, speak to them. A lot of people don't listen to me because I like to cuss. And I'm like, I cuss in my podcast. Like normal mindset people would be like, you can do it, go get it. And I'm like, get your shit together. Let's go, dude. So that's kind of different.
Well, I think also what's very important is there's a lot of motivational speakers out there that they say the right things, but yet have accomplished nothing all at the same time. Right. Yeah. So I think it's 100%. Important to actually listen to somebody that actually did something with their life, which is clearly what you've done.
Yeah.
All the fake gurus, all the Instagram gurus,
fake gurus, for sure.
Man, there's a lot of them out there,
You mentioned something that really struck with me, like so the mindset situation, directly related to sales. Obviously, you were a successful sales trainer, you were a successful salesperson. Cutco, that's the knife company, right? Was that door to door?
So it was close to door to door. So we would go, it was in-home presentations, but when we would go see somebody, we would ask for referrals to people that they knew. And then we would cold call their referrals. So it wasn't door to door, but it was literally cold calling their friends saying, hey, Stacy told me that you might want to do an appointment with me. And, you love cooking. So I would go over the house and show them knives. And I still to this day don't even cook. 37 don't cook, and still somehow sold at 19, 20 years old, hundreds of $1,000s in knives to ladies.
I think that is the most powerful way to actually learn sales, to be in front of people in their faces, presenting a product or a service and having to see the reaction, having to deal with them in person rather than by email, by text message, by, all the current methods that we use.
Yeah. Well, it's rejection straight to the face. So like, it's like most people don't want to do, I say sales is such a high paying job because it's hard, because people can't they don't like being rejected. And so it's like, you get hung up on, when people aren't expecting, and then you're literally sitting in front of someone's face and they're just like, no, I don't want it. And you're, 3 feet away from them, seeing it right in their face. And you're like, okay, like you just got to get used to rejection. If you see it enough, you're just like, it doesn't matter anymore. I think that's the superpower that sales builds, is how to understand people, but then also how to just not stop, because you get rejected so many times that you're just going to become used to it. And it's okay at that point.
How important is mindset to becoming a successful salesperson?
I mean, I was thinking about my very first days in Cutco, and I didn't have any referrals. So I used to call their pink slips. They had this room they called the dungeon. It was in the very back, and it had thousands of pink slips, all of the receipts. And I would just cold call these people and see if they wanted me to come out and show them more knives. And I remember the whole time being like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work, but like, I just don't want to be poor anymore. I don't want to be where I am anymore. I'm just going to keep doing this. And so I think the way that you talk to yourself, your mindset is probably the most important part of sales, because to cold call somebody, you got to prep yourself to do that. You've got to you've got to be like, let's go. This is going to work. You've got to understand that person's mindset to know how to mold it into the way that you want to get them to say, yes, if they're on the edge. So I think it's probably the most important piece to being a salesperson.
I definitely agree. I feel like it affects all aspects of life, not just sales. Like obviously dating,
Right.
You have to have that confidence, you have to have the right mindset. And then with anything, whether you're an entrepreneur starting a business, failure is right there, rejection is right there behind every door. So if you have the right mindset, at least you'll continue. You won't just give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read about you and I like your rules for success. Can I read them out to you and get your, I guess, motivation behind them, or at least, what the idea was?
Yeah.
So one was never stop learning, start each day with uplifting messages and personal development. Now, please forgive me, but this sounds like a typical motivational speaker, like hang up the posters that say inspiration, motivation, teamwork. I mean, it sounds like the fluffy, stuff that the typical, you typically hear.
Yeah.
Tell me how this actually, how it is in real life with your scenario or your teaching.
Yeah. I mean, all of it can sound fluffy, and it's kind of like the thing where cliches are cliches because they actually are true. That's usually the way that it works. But for me, I'll be real. Like, we've gotten, as we've been scaling, I mean, you guys have scaled a lot as of recently. In the past couple of years, I've been watching you guys, you've scaled a lot. I know with scaling, you guys have been kicked in the face a lot. It just happens because as you scale, things that were good at a certain, my business, things that were good at 2 million are not good at 7 million. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. With growing pain, there's growing pains. That's what I like to call right now. That's a transition we're actually going through right now. So a great point.
And it's very easy to drop into, well, this is screwed up. This is going to break everything. And you could do that if you want to, or you could look at a different side of it and say, like the way I like to look at life is like a video game, right? Like if you look at a video game, if you played a video game and it was literally just a video game that was a character that was walking around their house, and every once in a while they'd pick up this little thing and they'd scroll on this thing and they'd sit there for 2 hours doing this, and then they'd go and they get something to eat, and then they go and lay on the couch and they would watch Netflix for a while. You'd be like, this is the most boring game, right? Like it sucks. Whenever you play a game, what makes a game fun is a challenge, right? And there's a challenge in everything, and every challenge makes you better. And with every time that you overcome the challenge, you get to a new level. And with new levels or new devils, you're going to find something else that's another challenge to get you to another level. And so it's like we're going through scaling quickly, and it's awesome, and it's all good stuff. But then there's also a lot of shit that's kind of breaking on the back end, and we're like, oh, we need to fix this. Now we can look at this and be like, this is not going to work. This is not going to happen. Or we can look at this, and the conversation I have with my executive team is, this is going to make us so much better. And it comes down to like the way that we're actually perceiving it and the story that we're telling ourselves around it. And so instead of looking at it like, oh, this is going to screw us up and we're going to be real bad, everything's going to go to shit, we're actually making notes on every single step that we do in the process, so that when we take other people who are business owners through the exact same process, it's like, here was our formula to get through this. Take this and see if it works for you. But the piece of it that's the biggest, besides all the steps, is like, what am I actually telling myself in my head as this is happening? Usually, because when a lot of people get a challenge, they see it as like, oh my God, this is screwing me up. I don't know if I can go through this. And it's like, that's a victim. Like, this is happening to me. We like to look at it from like, this is happening for me. Why is this being brought to us for us to learn and improve? Like I'm going through, I'll give you guys a God honest truth. There's a vendor that we've been using for a while that's been delaying payments to me for something, without going into too much details.
Touche.
They are
brother.
They are extremely behind. I'm talking like 4 Holy Grail watches behind on me. And I might not get them. And so I might not get that. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, I could look at it, and Rob in scarcity back in the day would have been like, this is fucking terrible. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, because money was my scarcity thing back then. Now I'm looking at it, I'm on the phone with my agent, and I go, at least it's happening now, and it's not $10 million, 5 years from now. So I get to learn this lesson and see this before it comes up 10 years down the road, ends up being 10 times more money. Right. And so it's like, just a simple reframe that just makes me feel better in the moment and makes me go, well, what lessons can I pull from this challenge so I can get better later on in this video game that I'm playing all the time?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of our I guess our most viral episodes are when something bad happens to us. We get scammed, we lose, something's stolen.
Yeah.
Each one of those, yes, obviously we don't fake anything. They're all real, but each one of those is a learning experience for us. We're like, okay, from now on, this is what we are not doing to avoid doing that. However, it is killing the virality of our future videos, because we don't have that many, scammed and stolen and lost, but it is improving the business as a whole.
I actually have this button on my desk that when you click it, it says no, and it says no a bunch of different times. Because what happens is, because I have the most experience here amongst our sales staff, when they come to me with a lot of questions, I will say no, not because I want to turn them down or God forbid hurt the business, but because I have lived through these situations so many times and I've learned. And so I'm extra vigilant, extra vigilant, to the point that I learned. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1 million in mistakes over a course of 10 years. So it's that hypervigilance. It's that paranoia that I move with, especially when you're dealing with all the finances in the company, because what we're dealing with is very, very expensive.
Yeah. And especially because you can buy something and a month down the road, it's half the price that you bought it at, So it's like, but that's what you're saying though, is the exact point, which is perfect, which is you only know that because you did fuck up in the past.
Yep.
And that's like most people don't want to work because they don't want to screw something up. But you have to fuck up in order to learn the lesson. And what I always tell my sales team is like, when they make a big mistake and they don't get a sale, they mess them up. I'm like, listen, let it hurt. Let it hurt for a while, because when it hurts, you won't forget it and you won't do it again. But the only reason you can perceive it and you can see it a mile away is because you've already had these things that you've done before in the past and different lessons, and you've screwed up, or you've seen this happen before and you've pivoted. And so it's like, everybody always wants to be like, you're like 13 years in, right? You're like chapter 30 or 13. your brand new person's at chapter 1 and they're like, well, I just want to be at chapter 13 like Adrian is. But it's like, dude, no, you've got to put 13 years into it to understand all the things that you've done. It's like there has to be work put in order to get where you want to go. And you learn the lessons along the way. And a lot of the times it's by getting kicked in the face. That's kind of how it goes.
That's the reason for my receding hairline.
That's where the hairline went.
That's
I got you.
Your real life example of like learning every day is obviously, accepting the fuck ups and accepting the mistakes and just figuring out how to overcome them. Any other type of learning you recommend?
I always tell people like you should definitely read books, and I read a book every single morning. It's like part of what I do. But I think what's actually more important for people to learn is this important thing that I've been saying a lot recently is like, if I were to ask you guys, like, do you know yourself, right? Everyone's going to say, yes, I know myself. When you know yourself, it's based off of the past. And that's part of the problem is a lot of people will take the past and try to predict the future. And so what I've been telling people is instead of knowing yourself, start to learn yourself. And the way that you do that is actually by putting your thoughts down on a piece of paper and working through it. Like if I gave you guys a complex math problem, like 924 times 5,043.
1,426 and 20.
Yeah, you got it. You're quick on this, right? You're a savant. But you could write it all down and figure it out. You'd want a piece of paper and a pen. And it's like, that's a math problem. But if you think about your life, your relationships, like it's 100 times more complex at least. Why would you not want to put it down on pen and paper? And so for me, it's like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll just put down like, what am I feeling? How am I feeling? Tell me like, and then I'll ask myself, why am I feeling this way? Last thing I always ask myself is, what do I need to do to make today great? Like what would make today good? Like something that I actually enjoy. And it's about just being more intentional with it. But the idea of learning yourself is actually really foreign to people. And that's what they do when they go to a therapist or they hire a coach is they see a mirror of themselves reflecting back. And they're like, oh shit, I didn't really understand about myself. I didn't realize that I was messing that relationship up because of my relationship with my mom from when I was a kid or whatever the connections are. A lot of people can do this by themselves and it costs $5. You go and you get a notebook, you get a pen and you start writing stuff down. And so I think there's an aspect of learning. There's an aspect of the way that you speak to yourself. There's also an aspect of like, why am I the way that I am, and starting to learn yourself in that way. And learning is based in the present. Knowing yourself is all based in the past. But if I want to change myself and create a different future, then I want to learn who I am in this moment in every moment to start improving it. So that's kind of the way I've been thinking about journaling and putting my thoughts down on paper a lot recently.
That's awesome. Never heard it put that way. That's actually probably the most effective method I've heard. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah. Like what would I write?
Yeah. Like when so many people are just like, yeah, I know myself. Well, I am the way that I am, right? This is just my personality. And then you're like, oh, it's your personality. Well, in case you didn't know, personality, the root word for personality is persona, which is Greek, which is the mask that they would wear on stages in theater. And so like your personality is a mask that you're wearing. And like Alan Watts always says, you're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. You could just go, I'm not going to be that fucking person I've been all the time. And so when you're based in knowing, you're based in the past and trying to recreate the past in the future, it's just like, or you could just throw it all out and be like, you know what? I've been shy my entire life, I'm a big introvert, right? So when I got into sales, I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I can do this. But I was also like, I don't want to be poor anymore. I don't want to be broke. I saw what my dad's life looked like. I don't want it to look like that. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to try to be somebody else. And so it's like, you could be shy and then you go, well, what if I just like put on the mask of like someone that's outgoing today and just see what it feels like and just constantly learn what those things feel like and testing the boundaries of what someone thinks that they are. That's really what I want people to do.
That's awesome.
Would you say that behavior that you're talking about right now, that constant note taking, that conscientiousness that you've built up is more or less the driving force of your success?
I constantly play devil's advocate in my own head. Like I'm constantly trying to pull apart all the shit I say in my own head and like test the boundaries. And I always say I said this yesterday to a group. I was on a Zoom call with one of these courses that I run, and there's like 80 people there. And I said, listen, you think the podcast is for you. The podcast is for me. Like it's my daily reminder. I'm speaking to myself all of the time through this, and I'm trying to reinforce all these things to myself. And so the podcast is like, it is literally like my journal outwardly. It's been like the most cathartic thing for me because I was so afraid to share my father's death and how he was an alcoholic and all this time. Like my father passed away on a Thursday. I went back to school on Monday. I didn't tell anybody. Right. So I just hid it. And when I started the podcast, I was like, I'm telling everybody my shit. I'm just going to put it all out there. And so I think a big piece of it is like, I'm constantly testing my boundaries. And when I see like a paradigm come up, is being like, is that actually true? Like, am I actually, when I say, oh, that's just the way that I am I actually that way? Like, if we look into the fabric of the universe, did it say Rob Dial is going to be this way exactly? And I'm like, nope. And so it's like, all right, well, if not the fabric of the universe, it's not absolute truth, which means I can do whatever the fuck I want. I can change it immediately. And so like, I'm literally trying to break myself down as often as I possibly can. And the more that you break yourself down, the more you realize that we're just literally a story that we tell ourselves. And all day long, we're just trying to prop that story up. I'm just trying to pull like the legs out from under the story and just see if I can test everything with it.
I like it. So
deep.
your rule number 2 is invest the time to discover what you truly want in life. How do you suggest going
Yeah.
about that?
You know, humans, maybe we get more lives, maybe we don't. We can look into all of the religions. I don't know which one's true. I don't know if all of them are false. I don't know any of it, but I do know that like this one that I'm in is true. And for me, I was telling my wife about this weekend. We were talking about like just the path that I've been on, and she goes, "It's interesting because who you are is like this perfect, like what you do and who you are is this like perfect storm. Like when you look at the whole story of how you came up and what you do, like it all makes so much sense." And I was like, "Yeah, I remember sitting in a small room the day before my dad's funeral and seeing him and looking at him in the face and going, 'I'm not going to be you.'" And being like, what did he do? That like he was a big dreamer, but he never took any action towards making that dream happen. Right. So I remember looking at it and I was like, I appreciate him for everything I got. And there's a lot of great qualities I had, but he's the first person I ever saw dead in person, all of that. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, I'm not going to get to the end of my life and have so many like dreams and hopes and wishes and desires that don't come true. It's not happening. Like that was 15 years old. It clicked in my head, not happening. So I was like, if I'm going to die one day, I'm not going to die and wish that I would have done more. I'm not going to die and wish I would have become more. So like from that moment on, I was like, what do I want my life to be? What do I want to happen? And so I think that for most people is they kind of act like they're going to get a second at bat at life. Like they're kind of on deck, but they're not in the batter's box, you know, like I feel like that's how a lot of people live their lives.
Mhm.
And they're waiting for someone to come and save them. And so for me, it's like, if you have a job and you make 70 grand a year and you've got kids and bills and all that stuff, it's hard to transition and do something that you love. And I get it, but isn't it worth it to at least test it and see if there is something else that you could do? Like, or create a 2-year transition plan. Like, wouldn't it be better knowing that when you have kids, they're going to be a lot like you? Which means that if you have a job that you hate, they're going to probably get a job that they hate because they think that's just how the world works. Wouldn't it be better instead of making 70 grand if you made 50 grand doing something that you absolutely love, but your children see like a passion inside of you and they learn how to become that way? What's kind of crazy about it though is that, you know, people won't leave the $70,000 a year job. They won't build a $50,000 a year thing. But what's crazy about the whole thing is that as I've started to see people, you know, is they'll think that this thing's only going to pay them like 50 grand, whatever this passion is. And they're afraid because they see this one that's paying them 70. And the people I've seen who have made the transition, what happens is this: they have this job that's making 70. They start to build this like side hustle. They start to fall in love with something. They start to test themselves, figure out what it is that they're actually passionate about. They build it. They make a transition plan over time. They get this to 50. They quit the 70. They put the 40 hours extra in a week into the 50 and they make 400. And it almost always happens where it's like, it's a little bit of a cut on the front end. And then the back end ends up being a whole lot bigger. Like I get a message the other day, no joke, from a lady in Australia. And I had a podcast episode where I just wanted to tell people how to make money online. Like there's like 75 ways I could think of. I was like, I have nothing to sell you. I'm just going to tell you what I've seen because I've been in this industry for a while now. And I did a lot of testing on my own. I made this episode like 18 months ago. She sent me a message a few months ago and she's like, hey, just want to let you know, I heard that. I decided to make a transition plan. I was able to make money quicker. I built my business to over $1 million the first year. I wrote a book, New York Times bestseller book. I've been in this country, this country, this country, this country, this country. I have 3,000 students. And it was literally just that idea of like, there might be something else out there.
Bam.
Like there might be. And there's a million ways to make $1 million. But the internet's this big, amazing thing where you could find this thing that you love, whatever it is. I mean, like, I was telling my wife this yesterday, we're going to have this conversation. I was like, how weird is it that we like watches? Like I was like, it's like falling in love with anklets. Like it's just an accessory, but it's like this thing that we love for some weird reason. Like why the it's I have an iPhone, dude. Like why do I need this thing? I don't, but it's like I love watches. It's just something that I love. And so, but you guys have built a $150 million business off of watches, right? And so it's like that was a passion that over years turned into this big thing. And I think most people don't realize that if they just find something they're passionate about, they love doing it. It doesn't feel like work, and they put more time into it because I love it so much. And then they usually build it up to be something that's successful. So I think going back to your original question, I think it's about like just ask yourself, like, what the fuck do I want? What do I want my life to look like? What am I passionate about? What does the world need? How can I make money? I think those are just some key questions people can think about.
I think finding that passion is probably one of the hardest parts that people, have. Like, what am I passionate
Yeah.
about? Well, money. I'm very passionate about money, and then you're like, okay, how do I make money with money? And you're like, all right, I'm going to start all these different side hustles. I'm going to test them all out. And you give up as soon as it doesn't go your way, or as soon as it's a little bit more difficult than you imagined. It's really hard, I think, for people to imagine, or at least to figure out what they're passionate about. You might have not been passionate about watches. You're like, oh, okay, I like watches. They're cool, but I'm not passionate about them. Like, I don't want to do this day in and day out, 20 hours a day. So I think that's the difficult part that people run into. I wonder if you actually have like
here's a real
some
good
sort of
question
method.
that you can find around that. Is a real good question is just like, what gives you energy? So like the way that I think about it is like yesterday was my birthday. I could have taken the entire day off. Thanks, guys. I could have taken the entire day off. Fuck that. I love doing what I do. Like it gives me energy. And so like I had a Zoom call I ran for like 70 people, and I had another Zoom call I ran for like 80 people. And then I had meetings in between. We're talking about hiring a CMO in the company. I had a conversation with him. All of these things are just happening.
It's a good idea, by the way. It's a good idea. Should do it.
Yeah, I'm sure he would probably have some ideas on that as well. But the whole thing is like I could have taken the day off and it would have been fine. But I actually love doing what I do, and doing it gives me energy. Like there's some people I like playing guitar, but I don't like it enough to do it all day long. There's some people that do it all day long and they become amazing at it. And so I think what people should ask themselves is like, what actually gives me energy? Like when I get done doing this thing, I feel more energetic than when I got done, when I started this thing. Like us talking now, I have more energy now than I did when I first walked into the studio, because this is actually just what I love, and I think people like start trying to follow the energy more and then ask like, where's the energy dead in my life? Like what parts, is a relationship where the energy's dead? Okay. Is that something that's because the relationship's dead, or is it because like the way I've been showing up? And so I think it's asking what things give me energy is actually a really easy way to figure out something that you're passionate about. And a lot of people just don't have enough hobbies and they don't try enough things. They don't do enough things. And if they did, they'd start to find stuff they love more.
It's really a good method. I don't think I've ever heard it that way. Obviously, it's always spoken very simply, like find something you love. I love my wife.
I found golf.
Like,
I found golf, and I have a lot of energy now when I play golf, and I keep telling myself, man, if only
you should become a golfer.
What a job this would be. Like when I watch the guys on TV that are making millions playing golf, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
They found
and then
their
you got to
passion
ask
early.
yourself though, because then you got to get into some tournaments and see if that gives you energy or if it stresses you.
I was actually thinking about that. I had this weird thought. I had the weirdest thought in my head the other day. If Luxury Bazaar does this over X amount of time, and I continue on this golf journey, and I'm getting better, which I am. So a lot of times we think we're better than we are. I was like, imagine an article where this is the oldest guy to ever join the PGA Tour. Like he started the latest, but yet joined the PGA Tour. I'm like, could I do it in 10 years?
He comes in with a Bubba on his watch. He's wearing a Bubba just coming in for his very first tournament. Is that what it is?
That would be epic.
Yeah, I would come in there with a Bubba for sure.
So some of the other rules you had, we covered, which was like writing it down, journaling, like actually being able to evaluate what your thoughts are. And that's a really good one. I really like that one. Whenever you hear somebody talk about journaling, you're like, another bullshit speech about, journaling, but yours is actually really good to just kind of like jot down what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, and how you could change it, how you could alter that. Like, so if I woke up this morning and said, I'm feeling great, everything is good, what would I like to change? I'd like somebody to dress my kids and do it for me. So, I mean, that would be a lot more physical. Like, okay, got to get the nanny to do it instead of myself. But Don't.
Mhm.
That's not something I want to do. Your last rule was
real quick. I just want to touch one more point on that whole journaling thing because I find it fascinating. Would you recommend people to have an actual mentor? Because I've done journaling myself in the past, and although it was beneficial for me, I found that there was some type of disconnect with so a lot of the thoughts and feelings we have are the thoughts and feelings we have. We can't control them, but at times they could be a little bit maybe not true,
Mhm.
or so that way. I have mentors that I talk through, talk things through that help me.
Mhm.
Would you recommend that? Is that something that you have? Like a
Oh,
second,
yeah.
me and Roman, for example, when we're buying watches, we have what's called a four-eyed principle. I have an
Mhm.
opinion on something. He has his own opinion and experience on something. But our four-eyed principle is pretty much the best way to get the best result.
The thing about it is this is like, here's what first off, the average millionaire has 7 mentors before they become a millionaire.
7. Damn.
7, right? And
damn,
so
I don't
there's a
have
lot of
7
people that are
friends.
just trying to do it on their own. Yeah, it's wild. And for me, I'm really big on, there's a lot of people who are really intelligent that came before me. Like, why would I just try to figure it all on my own? And so there's 2 aspects of it. There's paid mentors and there's free mentors. People always ask this question, right? I think there's benefits to both. Like I have free mentors that are friends that are like, one I can think of specifically, he's 47 probably. He's worth about $150 million. And every single time I see this guy, we go and get coffee. He walks around with his journal in his hand that has all of his goals, and he constantly updates his goals every single day. And so just by viewing him as a person, I've gone, oh shit, well, he's worth that much money and he's that happy and he's that successful. Maybe I should take a page out of his book by just watching him, right? And seeing that he literally does not leave his house without his journal that has all of his goals that he updates every single morning. So there's benefit to that, but I haven't spoken to him in 4 months, maybe. So we don't talk to each other really often, but we'll go get coffee a few times a year. We text, all that stuff. But if somebody has like a paid mentor with whatever it is they want to do, usually you're going to have a cadence of like once a week. You're going to have assignments at the end of every single call when you get done with them. And that's usually where they give you like journaling questions. Hey man, like I'm noticing that you're telling yourself this disempowering story of like, I can't lose weight because, everyone's overweight in my family. It must be in my genes. Journal through that and ask yourself, is it actually that it's in your genes, or is maybe it's just that the right habits in working out and drinking enough water and the food that you're eating, maybe that's what it might be. Cause I just want to test the boundaries, and they can give you those types of assignments. There's also accountability because the next week you got to show up to a call and tell them that you did the shit that you didn't, or that you didn't do it. And usually people will hold themselves accountable when it's somebody else that they have to report to. So I think that's the benefit of having one. And I think that the last piece that makes a paid mentor really good is that if they're worth their salt, they should feel your success as their obligation. And so, because if you're paying me, I better get you the freaking results that you need, right? And so there's benefits to both of them. And I think both of them are needed and both of them are necessary. But the reason why I love coaches and mentors so much is because I hired my first when I was 19, like I told you guys, and it was more money than I had and I put on a credit card, but I don't know where my life would be if I didn't hire him. Right. And I worked with him for 2.5 years, talked to him every single week. And I don't remember any conversation that we had in 2.5 years except for one. And one of them was, he called me out on my shit. And he goes, and it was like, I'll remember to the day I die. And I've made a video on it, and it literally went like pretty viral on my Instagram telling this story about it. I showed up to a call and I was late. I didn't have my assignments done. I didn't make the phone calls I needed to make when I said I want to hit my goal, all this stuff. And he goes, hey man, can I ask you a question? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, if you go into a business and a business fails, they've got 1,000 employees, whose fault is that? I was like, it's the CEO's fault. He goes, if you go into a business and the business succeeds and the guy's got 1,000 employees and they were able to corral the employees to get them towards one mission, they succeed, whose fault is that? And I said, the CEO's fault. He goes, so what you're telling me is that if the business succeeds or the business fails, it's the CEO's fault. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, okay, you want to know your problem? Your problem is that you're not treating your life like the CEO of your life. You're blaming everybody else. You're not taking, it's someone else's fault. You're late because XYZ. You didn't hit your goals because of XYZ. He goes, if you get to the end of your life and it was everything that you wanted, you created this, had the success, the happiness, the money, you traveled all over the place. You're the best father you could possibly be, the best husband you could possibly be. Whose fault is that? And I was like, it'd be my fault. He goes, but if you get to your deathbed and wish that you would have done more, whose fault is that? I was like, it'd be mine. And he goes, that's your problem. And like my life changed. Like it's not even like a bullshit story. It was like my whole paradigm of life shifted. And I was like, everything's my fault. I've got to fix it. And so that was a conversation for a paid mentor. That's worth $15 million at this point. You could not pay me to go back and be the person that I was before that conversation. And so there's benefits to both of them, but I think everybody should have mentors in some sort of way.
Yeah, that's really good advice. We actually just put in a new system in place here with the salespeople to have, I guess, an in-house, like a built-in mentor, somebody that they can constantly go to for advice, for help, for motivation. We're testing it out to see how it works. But on that topic, if you were to create, like I guess like a mindset plan, or like a plan of success for a salesperson, let's say in our industry, I guess it doesn't matter what industry, but in our case, if we wanted to hire you, and I'm not asking you for any free advice, but if you gave us like
I'll give it to
a
you.
very simple plan,
Let's go.
how would we improve our salesperson's, performance, their mindset there? Because we have two salespeople sitting one right next to the other, while one is doing $1 million in sales per month and the other one's doing 200,000. How do we fix that?
Well, first off, I like some of the stuff you guys do because I've seen it. It's fun. Like the thing about a sales team that a lot of people screw up is it should be competitive. It should be fun. There should be shit talking, but there should also be this underlying, I've got your back no matter what. And it's got to be an open door policy, right? So the thing about it is, and this is also what's great going from mentors and talking about sales, is that, Adrian, you probably got as good as you are because you had Roman that was helping you. He had been in business a little bit longer, right? Your salespeople, they get so much better because they have both of you guys to talk to. And so there's an aspect of fun, of competition, and accountability that always has to be there. And so if somebody says, like, I'll look at your goal for the entire month, right? And this is where a lot of people kind of screw up as a sales manager is my goal is I want to sell $1 million this month, right? Okay. And they say they want to sell $1 million this month. Cool. Do I have permission to do whatever it takes to hold your feet to the fire? Like, this is 100%. If you get hit by a bus, you're going to hit this number? Yes. Okay, cool. Do I have permission to call you out on your bullshit and help you every single step of the process in order to get you there? Yes. Okay. And now you've got permission from them. This is what I screwed this up a lot because I was like the dick as a sales manager for a long time, where I was just like driving, but there was no permission. And they're like, I'm quitting. And they just left because I was an asshole, right? But I can be an asshole if you tell me I can be an asshole, right? So it's like, there's the fun, there's the competition, there's the accountability, but it's also the whole of like, I've got your back. It's an open door policy. Come into my office when you're struggling with XYZ, and then we'll figure it out. Then the other thing I think is a big piece of it is to have like 15 days in to have a paycheck, like a mid-month paycheck meeting.
We do that weekly. We do that weekly. Yeah. So it's definitely.
Yeah. And so it's like that. I think what you guys are doing is right, but it's also the thing of like the last piece is that there needs to be and we've learned this 100%. And we've started doing this for the past few months. There always needs to be another salesperson on deck in case someone's not cutting it. Right. And so one of the things, like, salespeople should be killers. Like, I want to walk into the sales office and it's a bunch of fucking sharks. And if there's one person, and this is a really key thing that a lot of people don't think about, is it is really true that they're only as strong as the weakest link. So if you're keeping somebody, I don't know who the person is, but let's say they're at $200,000 in sales and you have everybody else at $1 million. What's actually happening is that 200,000 in sales is leaking into the $1 million. And they're thinking, well, they're not working as hard as I am. Like, maybe I could just lay off a little bit. But if you have another person that's always on deck and always hiring for the sales process, that person's like, I need to step up or get out of here. And they know that there's a constant hiring process. And it's not like, hey, you're about to be fired, but it's like, hey, we're always interviewing. And you can see that people walk in the office that we're constantly interviewing, and they're just always sitting on deck for when we need to bring somebody in. That usually brings the bottom up. And that usually at least helps with it. Or it's what we always say is you either push up or push out. They're either going to get up to that $1 million mark or they're going to get out. And they need to know that they need to hit this number by this date, or else we're going to have a conversation that you got 30 days to figure it out. And if you're not at there in 30 days, you're going to be replaced. And so I think there's a sales should be fun. It should be competitive. It should be hardcore accountability from a place of like love. Like, I love you, dude. I don't want you to be gone. Like that type of love, not like, hey, you said you're going to do this, get it together, dickhead, which is kind of how I used to be, right? It's like a hardcore accountability from a place of love. And there's a little bit of, I'm always on the chopping block. That's how you create like the best salespeople, in my opinion. That's what I've always found is like, I like that. I kind of like being driven from like almost a scare. As much as I would prefer abundance over scarcity, I kind of liked being a salesperson driven from a little bit of like, I got to look behind me because I could be out of here soon.
Yeah, we had that in the meeting. It was me, Avi, and Roman. And I remember came in stomping, hollering, and shouting. I tend to do that. It's just my personality. I simmer down quick. And one of the things I said is I want killers, not kittens. And Avi's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And boom, we had like this crazy process that actually worked, you know?
Yeah.
I think
you guys had that whole competition you guys did, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Having it public, I think, really lit a fire under the existing people. But then, you have a couple of months where we don't have it, but everybody sees the amount of inquiries we get on a daily basis of like, I want to work from you. I'll move from whatever. I'll quit whatever.
Yeah.
There's always somebody ready to come work here.
Always.
100%. A sales team should always be hiring.
Yeah. We're constantly hiring, and like, we're actually, telling people, hold off. As soon as we need you, we'll call you back up to bat. So some of the stuff that you're currently running, and again, I don't know if I'm going to mention all of it. You can correct me. You have the Mindset Mentor University. You have the Mindset Mentor podcast. Like I mentioned, it's the #1 motivational podcast. You have the Mindset Mentor YouTube channel. All these things require a lot of your time, a lot of content, a lot of inspiration, and just obviously a big team. How do you get all this stuff done?
Yeah, I don't know. I still ask myself that same question. I mean, the good thing is like I've been able to hire people I can really trust. So we have 34 people on the team now that we've grown it to. So we have, Mindset Mentor University is kind of, there's a Mindset Mentor, which is the podcast. There's the YouTube that comes from the podcast. Mindset Mentor University is just like self-help weekly calls that they have with me. And on the other side of that, we've actually got a full other business that's a piece of it that is where we train people who are coaches on how to make money online, like how to grow their following and then how to actually get clients from their following, which is actually one of our main revenue generators. So we have, I think 1,400 coaches we've trained so far over the past few years, the past 3 years now.
Oh, so they become like not licensed, but certified in a sense?
Yeah, there's no certification process, but it's usually like, like a good example is someone will come in and they're a life coach and they'll go through some certification process. But the problem with certification process, they don't tell them how to make money, right? Like they're just like, oh, you're certified. It's like, I was talking to my chiropractor the other day and he came to my house on Monday and I was like, they didn't teach you how to build a business, did they? He's like, no, they just give you a piece of paper. That's kind of like a lot of certifications. So what we do is we take people who are like fitness coaches, relationship coaches, wellness coaches, a lot of therapists, and actually teach them how to grow their following online with content. And then once they get people to follow them, how to get those people to turn into clients. And so it's like, I don't want to teach you how to be the expert that you are. I want to teach you how to not be broke anymore as an expert, because the average like life coach makes, I think it's like $24,000 a year, something like that. And before I started teaching people, my fourth year being a coach, I made 775 grand. And I was like, oh, maybe I could teach these broke people how to actually make money online because their skill set's needed. They just don't know how to grow a following. They don't know how to make money from it, any of that type of stuff. So that's basically what we do. The good part about it is my best friend is was my very first hire after I realized that this was working. So he came over and he was also, we met in Cutco. So he's another killer, right? So it's like he built his own Cutco business. I built my own Cutco business. We built it together, and our first 4 hires for salespeople were Cutco people. So we luckily had this line of people that we knew were good. So now our guy that we're promoting into director of sales, I've known since 2007. I taught him how to sell Cutco when he was 16 years old. And now he's 31, 32. And so the thing that I've done to help me out is I ran businesses into the ground from not delegating. I know what my skill set is, and the things that I should do most in this company is coach people and create content. If I'm doing anything else besides that, which is Monday is just all meetings, outside of that, it's creating content and coaching people. So anything outside of doing those two things needs to be delegated to somebody else. And so what I've done is kind of built a team to help me do all of the things so that I can just stay in that pocket. Because the more that I create content that grows the following, the more that we have people that buy a book, the more that we have people that enroll into a program or course, or, you know, listen to the podcast, and we generate ad revenue from that. And so for me, it's like I've at least hired really good people that I trust, which I think is a big piece of it. I've known them for most people for a very long time that are in the business. So like I trust them enough to say like, this is yours, run with it.
Awesome. That's really good advice. I mean, the delegating part is probably the hardest part, especially finding people you trust. But once you
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
100%.
you have to use them.
It's
I
it's hard
wanted
to
to get into your
delegate.
watches. Oh, super hard.
Yeah.
I'm like a control freak.
Yeah.
To get into your watches, I wanted to start with, like, I guess, a simple question. Any watch, have you purchased any watches to celebrate or commemorate an achievement?
Yeah. That's basically the only time I buy watches. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, I remember being 3 years old in the back of my mom's car, and I asked for a watch and they wouldn't give me one, so I wore a rubber band and pretended it was a watch. Like that's how long I've loved watches, right?
Wow.
And then so from there it was just like anytime I've had something, I celebrate achievements with watches now. It's my
Awesome.
excuse, you know. It's really what it is.
So I talked to a guy yesterday that, bought one when his first son was going to be born. He bought one when he was
Hmm.
turned 40. He bought one when he made his first $1 million. You know, I feel like watches are the perfect product or the perfect item to commemorate an
Hmm.
achievement, because first of all, you have them with you. You won't sell them because that means you're selling that memory or that achievement, and
Hmm.
they're durable. They keep on going. Like, they kind of remind you of these things that you as well can be, just as durable. You can continue ticking, and you can get through anything. Let's go through
Yeah.
some of your achievements, aka watches.
All right. First one that was like a real one, which is I think that way for everybody, was just the one. Was it 116610? The
Sub
just the
date.
typical Submariner, right? So this one was when I get my business to $10,000 a month, I'm going to get this, and then I've realized that these are really hard to get if you want to get them from an AD. So it took me I hit that in 2016. I got this watch. My wife and I, girlfriend at the time, wife now, went and traveled all over the place, all over Europe for 6 months. We went to all over Europe. We went to Bangkok. We went to Southeast Asia, Bali, all of these places. We went to every single authorized dealer. Could not find it, right? As you guys, I'm sure, understand how that works. And the day before we left, we were in Rome. I wanted to build this business or an online business to travel. That was my main thing. And so it was like, man, like I wish I could get this watch to just like, I've built what I've been wanting to build. Like I have it now, right? And I'm at lunch with my friend who lives in Rome. He's, you know, Roman, born there, all of that stuff. And his friend's wearing one of these. And I was like, that's actually the watch that I want. I've been trying to find, we went to like 12 different authorized dealers across the world. And he goes, oh, well, my friend owns a Rolex dealership in the city. Do you want me to text him? And I was like, I mean, you could text him. He's not going to have it. And it was December 2017, 2 days before we left to go back home, and he had just gotten his shipment for Christmas in, and he goes, they came in today. We have 5 of them. If he can get here tonight, I'll give it to him. I was there like an hour later, and I was like,
Wow.
I'm here. Like, let me figure out a way to get it. And so that was the first one, which is so $10,000 in sales for the company was this one. And to like commemorate, oh yeah, we went on a trip. We did 6 months together, all that stuff. So that was like the first one I got. Then what happened was I was like, all right, well, 10,000 is the first number. Like I need something for 100,000. We hit $100,000 month. Right. And so it was funny because I think people who are watch people are going to love what I'm about to justify to them. And they're going to remember this is, I was in Mexico and there was a Panerai that I wanted. So I have it still. It's where is it? This one. So it was this Panerai, and I was like, I'm going to buy this Panerai because we go to Italy a lot. Like we went to Italy in September. We're going to Italy in a few weeks. Like we spent a lot of time there, and we spent a lot of time in Florence, Panerai, where Panerai is, right? So they're in Florence. So we go in there all the time, and we hit $100,000 month, and I go, I don't really need it. right? Like I've got a Rolex. Do I really need a Panerai? Like a dive watch to a dive watch? Like, is that necessary? And I was like, I'm not going to buy it. And I thought to myself, and I was like, hold on. If I make a contest for myself and I hit the contest and I don't do what I said I was going to do, am I going to stop trusting myself and caring about contests for myself anymore? And I the way I justified it, where I was like, I can't not trust myself whenever I set a contest. So I was like, I got to do this. And so I ended up buying it. So that was the second watch that I like, decent watch that I got. Like there's also like Hamiltons I had in the past and random stuff as well. But like these are the ones that are, more expensive. Then the when we got to $5 million in a year, I got this one, which is the what is this? I don't even know what it is. That one's 1392. This is like 1604 or something like that. The Panerai, which is, I wanted it because I couldn't get the
gold submersible. Yeah, I can't really see.
Yeah, it's a gold submersible 42 is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And first off, and their straps are terrible. Like I hated their straps. So I got a Horus strap put on it. It's 100 times better for the Horus strap versus the one that they had. So I got this one for when we did 5 million. And this one was the one I wore the most for a while. And then I got the one that I'm wearing now, which I barely wear any other watches after I got this one, which is the full gold blue Submariner. And got this one from an authorized dealer as well. Went into an authorized dealer, wasn't able to get a connection with them. My VP of operations was like, hey, my uncle just got a watch from them. He knows the guy who's their head buy, like the person who buys more than anybody else there. They go in with me. He walks into to the owner and he goes, hey, this is Rob. He's going to need to get some watches from you. I need you to try to put him towards the top of any list that you might have. Like literally was like that semi-aggressive with him. Like he's bought like millions of dollars with it. 4 days later, I get a text message and they're like, do you want this watch? And I was like, yep, I'll go for that one. And so this one is for, I got it in December, 4 days after my wife and I got married. So this is our marriage watch right here. So that's what I got so far. And then next I'm working with Adrian to either, it's either going to be an AP.
Talking APs. We're talking APs.
What I want is the biggest thing is a Patek, but it's like, dude, it's just, the prices are so ridiculous right now that I'm just like, I'll hold off, I could buy one,
What would be the achievement that you would have to, to actually achieve to?
Yeah, because these numbers are starting to grow along with the price.
I know, right?
This is where the rabbit hole and the dangerous part of watch collecting happens.
It's becoming very expensive hobby. Yeah.
So what are the grails then? Because your grails change. People's grails change over time as their income either goes up or it goes down. Yeah. So what are your 5 grail watches?
I mean, the one that I've wanted the most for the longest is a 5711R, but now it's like, you know what is it? A 5980R? Is that the one that's
chronograph?
Yeah. So now I'm thinking that one. But I also really like the blue one that they have. What is that, like?
5990.
5990. So yeah, there's 5980 I like, the 5990 I like, but 5990 is like real expensive compared to the rest of them. And then I think the other one I was looking at recently was, 5927? I think the stainless steel one. Is that right?
5726. You're talking Nautilus, right?
Nautilus. Yeah. It's a stainless steel blue. I think it's a chrono.
Does it have a moon phase?
5927. It's not 5927. Something like that.
I
don't know. You guys know the numbers better than I do.
5712, 5726.
Yep. So I think it's 57. Is it 5726? Is that the blue face?
They have a blue face, yes.
Okay.
So that, a blue face with a moon phase in it and a date.
Yeah.
It's
got. So that's the one.
That's a fan favorite. I'm sure that's the one.
Yeah. And then the other one is, which I think is just for simplicity, is probably like just the gold with the black face, only time and date AP. Right? Like that's the one that I'm probably getting next. That's what we're going to have to talk about offline, is that one. Like and that one's going to be to commemorate the book.
It's like 13 feet away. It watches.
Yeah, you already had this plan, huh? We already got this. But that one's going to be to my book. We literally just got it finished, and it's going to be coming out October, I think, is when we're going to be publishing it. So that's probably going to be like the next big thing.
You're doing both hard copy and Kindle and audio,
Yep. Audiobook, all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, what's crazy is, we might be at the point where I might not even have to record the audiobook because we just found a, software AI where I can it
Oh yeah,
listens to
yeah,
my
yeah,
voice,
yeah.
downloads it, and then it literally we're creating Spanish versions of the podcast. We're taking the script from the podcast, throwing it in, and it's perfect Spanish in my voice. So maybe I don't even have to record the audiobook. We'll see.
I think we should take this opportunity right now to actually, put it in writing. What do you need to reach? What goal you have to reach to get
Yeah,
that
I was gonna ask.
5726?
By the way, there's never a grail watch. You're gonna
It
get
keeps
the
going.
5726, and then you're gonna want to get boom, boom, boom. I'm telling
No.
careful
I'm
with
just
that game.
I'm just asking this because we're gonna write it down, and the minute that you hit it, we're gonna hit you up for,
Yeah,
gonna send you an invoice.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably $1 million month, which could happen in the next 6 months. Like that's our next thing. So it went from like 10,000 to 100,000 to 1 million. It's like once I'm there, it's like, that's justifiable, right? And it's not like that's the best part about this though, is you don't lose the money. Like you could sell these
Correct.
and get your money. Like it's better than keeping it inside of a bank account.
I'm setting a reminder on my
Absolutely.
phone.
It's
6 months from
6 months
now,
down the road, text Rob
that
Dial
would
and ask if they
be.
hit $1 million month.
I'll tell you,
It
this
really
is the
isn't,
easiest. iPhone reminders are the best. Like I don't know what I would do without them.
I feel
Yeah.
the same way, that like buying a watch is just moving, your assets from one place to another. You're not actually spending the
Right.
money. You're just storing it in another, item, another platform. It's actually how I got my wife to agree to let me buy whatever watch I want.
Yeah, it's very justifiable. It's the way that it's funny because, and I don't know if it's been this way for you guys and your wives, but like when I was first dating my wife and she was watching me with watches, like I'll tell you guys how I used to play in Cutco training on day 3 when we're talking about quality. I used to play in 2009 the video of AP Grand Complication to show them quality and go, how much do you guys think this watch is? And people were like, $5,000, $10,000. At that point, it was like $250,000 for that watch, like back in 2009, if you were to buy it from them. And so I've been obsessed with them for a long time. They talk about the whole masterpiece. I could probably script the entire thing for you because I've watched it so many times, the YouTube video, where they talk about putting it together and taking it apart 3 different times and the grand complication, the minute repeater and all this stuff. And I've seen that video so many times. I remember when we first started dating, she was like, you really like watches? And like, I had just a bunch of random watches that, a few $100, whatever they were, whatever I could afford back then. And like slowly but surely the appreciations happen. And now she like gets it. And now she wants watches. And so it's like,
That's dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah. She goes, oh, you're having a conversation with them? So I sent over the Rolex that we were talking about that she's been wanting for a while to Adrian a couple of days ago. Or about a month ago, I was like, hey, do you think you could source this? And he's like, maybe. And she goes, or if he doesn't, last night at dinner, or if he doesn't have that, I could just go for a gold AP, the women's one. So she starts pulling them up and sending me screenshots. She goes, oh, but this one's quartz though. I don't want to get a quartz one, right? I should get one. So I was like, she's got it. She's getting it. She understands this whole thing now.
2 collectors in the same family is very expensive.
But I'm sure it's that way for you guys though, right? Like your wives, I've seen Adrian, I think your wife, I've seen her wearing Day Date. Is that right? Should she have like a gold Day Date?
She has OPs, but she's not so big on watches. It's more say bags.
It's jewelry. It's like jewelry. Like
my
wife doesn't even.
Thank God she's not that big on jewelry because
no, the watches are the jewelry.
Yeah.
Like they don't.
The watches are most women out there don't really bother with the mechanics or engineering behind what goes into a watch. That's more of a masculine thing. It's a jewelry aspect for them, for the most part.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. She knows that I think she shouldn't get a quartz, but she'll wear a quartz because it's just about what it's the AP. She just wants the AP, So it's like me. I'm like, well, if we're gonna spend this much, we might as well get you an automatic.
I'm pro quartz.
Yeah, easy.
Put a battery in.
It's not, put a battery in.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Rob, thank you very much. I know, Adrian, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. I mean, we took an hour out of your busy schedule. We really learned a lot, and I think both of us will start following a lot of your advice here. Where can our viewers find you?
Yeah, I mean, they put my name in. I'm going to pop up all over the place. So Rob Dial, ROBDIAL, and then if they listen to podcasts, it's Mindset Mentor. If they watch this on YouTube, I'm all over YouTube as well. We put up, 4 videos a week, I think, on YouTube. So I'm put my name somewhere in the internet and I'm going to pop up whatever. I try to be omnipresent. So If it's Instagram or TikTok, or if it's YouTube, or if it's podcasts, I'm on all of those things wherever somebody wants to consume the content.
And I have one more question. Imagine you never did anything or accomplished nothing, but but in your mind, you know all the ups and downs and everything you've accomplished. One book for the rest of your life, knowing what you know now, back then. One book
that I could recommend. That I could only.
I know you're a big reader. Yes, only one of them.
Yeah, the one book for success we're talking about, right? Build it all back up to where I am.
Success is different for different people. You know, some people's financial.
It's always the same, man. Like for me, it was Think and Grow Rich, right? Like that was the first book. It was the first book, and you know, people are like, "Oh, it's kind of basic if you've been doing it for a while." Like it's basic-ish, but for me, where I was when I read it, I went, "Oh, there's steps to being successful." And it was the first time when I realized, like, it doesn't matter where I come from, doesn't matter what my mom is like, my dad is like, my background is like. If I do the right things, I can get whatever it is that I want. And so, like, I've held that idea for everything that I do in life, where it's like Tony Robbins always says, success leaves clues, right? So it's like, what are the clues of other successful people that show you how to get to where it is that you want to go? So like that book made me interview my grandparents before they died, because I wanted to know it. You know, they were together for 70 years.
Wow.
What is a successful relationship? So I had a 2-hour interview with them, because I was like, if you can be successful in making money, they're a really good example of successful in a relationship. So like, let me interview them. And so I realized, like, everything in life you can be successful in, or you can achieve whatever it is you want, but you just have to do the right things to get there. And so I would always just go straight back to that book over and over again.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, right? There it is.
Yep. Old school.
There it is.
Great.
Yep.
Well, Rob, with your name, you should have been in watches.
Yeah, dial. Yeah, that would have been a perfect Instagram handle. Rob Dial.
Oh man, does that mean that my children, we got to call them the subdials? Is that what it is?
Yeah. That's good.
That's good. I like that.
I never thought about that. I know. I should have been in watches, right? RD would have been a real good logo to put on a, you know, like AP, put an RD in there. It'd fit perfectly if we did that.
Yeah, they have that. Roger Dubuis. They actually have that RD.
Oh, that's right. They do.
But RD is perfect.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, this was amazing. This was amazing. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, because I watch you on YouTube. Now it feels surreal, because if you're watching somebody on YouTube, can't talk to them. Now I can actually talk to you, and you're saying shit back. So that was pretty cool. Highlight of my day, man. For sure. For my week, for sure. So thank you so much.
We got to get you in here and have you mentor some of our team members. I think that would be very beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, man. I might come stop by. So we are going to Italy, and coming back, we're going to probably stop in New York, we decided, and stay for a few days.
Oh, there you go.
So it looks like you guys are only a few hours away from there. So either you guys come up and meet us up there, or maybe we come down and take a trip and see the offices and stuff like that. See what you guys are doing.
Easy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
definitely.
So I'll keep it. I'll let you know. That's going to be end of May is when we'll be out towards that area.
That being said, I have a reminder set on my phone for September 29th, 2023 at 3 p.m. to text you. But we'll have obviously much more conversations from there. So
listen. I know that the follow-up is the biggest. The follow-up is the biggest piece to being a great salesperson. So I'm going to put a reminder in my phone an hour after that, and it's going to say, "Did Adrian text you?" And I'm going to see if you do text as soon as you get those reminders. So the success is in the follow-up in sales, you know?
I love it.
These reminders they're part of my DNA right now. Like, boom, that shit goes off, I do it. I do it. So
he's going to be like, what'd you guys do last month? I'm going to have to tell you.
The question's going to be, did you hit $1 million? That's going to be the question.
Yeah. Yeah. And the answer better be yes.
It better be yes.
Yes, right. I'm going to work my way.
We'll hold you accountable.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, man.
Thank you again for joining. Really, it's been a pleasure. I mean, we loved having you on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate being on.
Thank you.
Take care, Rob.